town of Smallville, Kansas lay still beneath the night sky, the fields stretching endlessly beneath a canvas of stars. The streets were empty, save for a few late-night workers heading home, their headlights cutting through the mist that rolled in from the distant farmlands. It was the kind of town where nothing ever happened, until tonight. Above the town, the air twisted violently. A faint green glow flickered in the sky, growing brighter by the second, like an ember catching fire. A low humming sound pulsed through the air, a deep, unsettling vibration that rattled windows and sent flocks of birds scattering into the sky. Then, the sky split open. A jagged tear in reality erupted above the town, swirling with chaotic energy. From its depths, something massive came hurtling through. A blur of green muscle, boundless power, and uncontrollable rage. The impact was cataclysmic. The figure slammed into the ground like a meteorite, sending an earth-shaking tremor through the town. The asphalt beneath the point of impact cracked apart. Entire buildings shook. Car alarms blared. The force of the landing was enough to send people flying off their feet, windows shattering from the shockwave. Then, silence. Dust and debris choked the air. The town buried in a fog of destruction. For a moment, there was no movement, no sign of life from the massive crater that had formed in the center of Main Street. But then, a deep guttural growl rumbled through the night, so low and primal that it sent a wave of dread through every soul in the vicinity. A shadow shifted in the dust. Then, he rose. The Hulk, towering, monstrous, more beast than man. His massive green form pulsed with raw gamma energy, veins glowing faintly beneath his thick, scarred skin. His breathing was slow, heavy, like a predator tasting the air before the hunt. His enormous hands clenched into fists, fingers cracking with barely contained power. His blank white eyes scanned the town, the flickering streetlights reflecting off his savage features. Then, he roared. The sound was deafening, shaking the very foundation of the town. It was not just a sound of anger, but of instinct, of raw, unrelenting destruction. He had no words, no reason, no memory of how he had arrived here. He only knew one thing. He was angry, and the world around him was about to suffer for it. Hulk's enormous foot stomped forward, the pavement beneath him splitting apart, as if the earth itself feared his presence. He grabbed a parked truck as if it weighed nothing and flung it through the air, the vehicle twisting end over end before crashing through the side of a hardware store. The explosion of metal and glass only seemed to fuel his rage. The people of Smallville screamed and ran, fleeing in terror as the green behemoth rampaged through the streets, destroying everything in his path. Light poles bent like twigs under his grasp. Cars were flipped and smashed into scrap metal. Buildings collapsed under his unchecked power. And then, he stopped. His nostrils flared. He sensed something powerful, something coming. He turned his head toward the sky, and then, he saw him. The wind shifted. A sudden massive gust of air rushed through the town, scattering debris, rattling rooftops. The very atmosphere seemed to tremble as a blur of red and blue streaked across the sky, cutting through the darkness like a comet. Then, a sonic boom. Superman landed in the middle of the destruction, his boots hitting the cracked pavement with the weight of a god. His bright red cape billowed behind him, the symbol of the House of El glowing like a beacon in the night. His strong square jaw was set in a firm line, his piercing blue eyes locked onto the massive creature before him. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he assessed. The destruction was widespread. Entire streets were in ruins, cars overturned, entire buildings reduced to rubble. But it wasn't calculated. It was wild, uncontrollable. A storm, not a war. And standing at the center of it all, the Hulk. Superman's gaze hardened. "I don't know where you came from," he said, his voice carrying across the ruined streets with perfect clarity. "But this stops now." Hulk's massive chest rose and fell with each deep breath. His enormous clawed fingers twitched. His instincts flared at the sight of this new opponent. Something inside him recognized power when he saw it. And this man in front of him, he was strong, stronger than anything Hulk had ever faced before. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Hulk moved, faster than anyone would have expected for something his size. The green giant charged, the pavement exploding beneath each thunderous step. Superman braced himself. Hulk's first punch came like a cannon blast, his massive fist swinging through the air with enough force to shatter mountains. Superman dodged at the last second. The punch missed him by inches but struck a building behind him, sending the entire structure crumbling in an instant. Superman's eyes narrowed. This wasn't just brute strength, this was raw, uncontrollable destruction. "I was hoping we could talk this out," Superman muttered. Hulk turned his head toward him, growling low. Superman exhaled sharply. "Guess not." Then he struck. Faster than a blink, Superman slammed his fist into Hulk's chest, sending him hurtling backward through the street, punching through 3 separate buildings before crashing into a grain silo on the town's outskirts. The entire silo collapsed on top of him, burying the green monster under thousands of pounds of steel and debris. Superman hovered above the wreckage, his eyes still sharp, still focused. His super hearing picked up movement beneath the rubble. His instincts told him this wasn't over. Then, the ground shook. The debris shifted, and Hulk rose. His white eyes locked onto Superman, filled with pure, mindless rage. His muscles bulged even further, his breath coming out in harsh growls. And then, he roared. Superman clenched his fists. All right then. He launched forward. Hulk charged, and as they collided, the shockwave leveled everything around them. The battlefield was nothing but ruin and fire. The once quiet town of Smallville lay in shambles. Entire buildings collapsed, streets torn apart like they had been hit by an earthquake. Smoke rose into the night sky, flickering in the glow of shattered power lines and scattered fires. The air was thick with dust, choking, heavy, almost impossible to breathe. Superman hovered in the air, his cape billowing in the wind, his piercing blue eyes locked onto the green titan below. His jaw was clenched tight, his fists still tensed from their first exchange. He had fought gods before. He had battled Doomsday, taken on Darkseid, gone toe-to-toe with beings who could shatter entire planets. But Hulk was different. He wasn't fighting for conquest, for ideology, for some grand plan. There was no strategy, no restraint. This was pure, unchecked rage, a force of nature. And it was growing. Hulk pushed himself up from the wreckage of the grain silo, his massive chest rising and falling like a bellows. He was breathing harder, his muscles swelling, veins bulging, his body adapting. His white, pupilless eyes burned with hatred. Superman heard the changes in his physiology. The way his heartbeat thundered faster. The way his already massive strength was multiplying. He had seen this happen before. The angrier he gets, the stronger he gets. Superman's face hardened. This wasn't a fight he could drag out. He had to end it, fast. Superman moved first. In a blur of red and blue, he closed the distance between them in an instant, fists clenched. His punch connected squarely with Hulk's jaw, the force behind it enough to level a mountain. Hulk's head snapped to the side. a shockwave blasting outward from the impact, flattening the remaining buildings behind him. The earth cracked beneath their feet, sending fissures splitting through the landscape. Superman didn't stop. He followed up immediately, his body moving faster than sound, raining down blow after blow, each one powerful enough to shatter steel, enough to break mountains, enough to break anything. Anything except Hulk. The monster staggered, grunted, his body shaking with each impact. And then, he grabbed Superman's wrist. Superman's eyes widened. Hulk's grip tightened like a vice, bones creaking under the pressure. Then, Hulk swung. Superman was ripped from the ground and hurled like a rag doll, his body smashing through the remnants of a collapsed building, through an abandoned truck, through a radio tower. Superman barely had time to recover before Hulk was already there. He leaped so fast, so strong, his feet leaving behind craters where he launched. He came down with a hammer-like punch, aiming straight for Superman's skull. Superman barely rolled away in time. Hulk's fist struck the earth like a meteorite, the impact so great that the ground cracked for miles. A massive shockwave ripped through Smallville, sending debris flying into the sky, cars flipping like toys, power lines snapping like twigs. Superman gritted his teeth, wiping blood from his mouth. He couldn't afford to drag this out. Time to end this. Superman took off like a missile, his body piercing through the atmosphere in an instant. He grabbed Hulk by the torso, dragging him upward, breaking the sound barrier, pushing higher and higher, past the clouds, past the sky, past the pull of gravity itself. Hulk thrashed wildly, roaring in fury, punching, kicking, clawing at Superman's arms. Every hit felt like a mountain crashing against him, but Superman held on, gritting through the pain. They broke through the stratosphere into the void of space. For a moment, there was silence. Hulk's massive body twisted, his growl fading in the vacuum. He wasn't used to this. No air, no ground to push off of, no way to move. Superman looked down at Earth, at the town that had nearly been destroyed in a single night. This has to stop. His eyes glowed red. Stay down, big guy. Then, he fired his heat vision. The twin beams of red energy slammed into Hulk's chest, launching him like a bullet back toward Earth. His massive form cut through the atmosphere like a meteor, flames licking across his skin as he fell. The temperature around him rose to thousands of degrees, his body glowing like a comet. Superman followed faster than the speed of light, fists clenched, ready to end this. But as they fell, something happened. Hulk's roar echoed through the sky, growing louder, deeper, more primal. His muscles expanded further, his skin hardening against the unbearable heat. The impact should have killed him, but instead, he evolved. Superman's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. Hulk was absorbing the energy. His skin, once smooth, was now rougher, thicker. His muscles were regenerating faster. And when he hit the ground, he didn't stop. He stood. A massive crater surrounded him, but Hulk didn't look injured. He looked bigger, more dangerous, more unstoppable. Superman landed just ahead of him, his breath coming out in short bursts. This wasn't working. Hulk wasn't just surviving, he was winning, and Superman realized there might not be a way to stop him. High above Earth, in the SHIELD helicarrier, warning alarms blared across the bridge. Nick Fury stood in the center, staring at the holographic display in front of him. A massive power reading was coming from the battlefield. It wasn't just Superman, it was Hulk, and his power level was off the charts. A voice crackled through the comms. "This is Captain America. We're en route." Beside him, Iron Man's faceplate clicked into place. I don't know who this guy in blue is, but if he's been punching Hulk for this long, and Hulk's still standing, yeah, we might have a problem. Thor gripped Mjolnir, his expression dark. Let us hope this battle does not cost us more than we can afford. The Quinjet descended toward the battlefield. The Avengers had arrived, and what they saw shocked them. Superman stood in the center of the destruction, fists clenched, eyes burning with heat vision. His suit was torn, his breathing ragged, and across from him, Hulk, still standing, still growing stronger, his fists clenched, his teeth bared in pure rage. The two titans stared each other down, neither backing away, neither surrendering, and then they charged. The battlefield was nothing but ash, fire, and ruin. The once peaceful landscape of Smallville had been reduced to a wasteland. Nothing but craters, broken highways, and collapsed buildings, stretching as far as the eye could see. Smoke billowed into the sky, blotting out the stars while fires raged in the distance. At the center of the destruction, two figures stood among the wreckage: Superman and the Hulk. Both warriors were battered and bruised, but still standing, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and power. Superman's suit was torn and bloodied, his breathing uneven. He had thrown everything at the monster standing before him. His strength, his heat vision, the force of 1,000 suns. And yet, Hulk was still there. The green behemoth's body was larger than before, his muscles swollen, his veins pulsing with gamma energy. His breathing was slow, measured, but his eyes had changed. They were no longer just white, mindless voids of rage. They had focus now, and that terrified Superman. This wasn't just savage Hulk anymore. Hulk was adapting, learning, thinking. Superman swallowed hard. I don't want to kill you. Hulk's jaw tightened. His voice, low, growling, and filled with something almost human, rumbled out of his chest. Then you already lost. And then, Hulk charged. Superman braced himself, then rocketed forward, fists clenched, moving faster than the human eye could track. Hulk met him head on, and when they collided, the entire battlefield exploded outward, sending a shockwave so powerful it shattered windows in Metropolis, hundreds of miles away. Superman lashed out, driving his fists into Hulk's ribs with enough force to level a continent. The Hulk roared in fury, retaliating with a devastating backhand, sending Superman crashing through the wreckage of a collapsed bridge. For the first time, Superman felt something he wasn't used to: fatigue. His muscles ached, his bones groaned under the repeated strain. And Hulk was getting stronger, faster, smarter. The green behemoth suddenly leapt into the air, grabbing a chunk of debris the size of a battleship, and hurled it at Superman like it was nothing. Superman caught it, but the sheer weight drove him into the ground, the impact forming a crater hundreds of feet wide. He barely had time to react before Hulk was on him again, fists raining down like meteors. Superman blocked the first two, but the third strike cracked the ground beneath him. Then the fourth hit. Then the fifth. The blows became faster, heavier, relentless. The kind of power that could shatter a god. For the first time, Superman felt fear. Then, in a blur of silver and red, Mjolnir slammed into Hulk's face, sending him skidding across the battlefield. Superman's head snapped up, and he saw them. The Quinjet hovered above the wreckage, its engines roaring as the Avengers leapt into the fight. Thor landed first, retrieving Mjolnir, his eyes burning with divine fury. Iron Man hovered beside him, his arc reactors glowing with enough energy to power an entire city. Captain America strode forward, shield raised, his expression grim. Black Widow and Hawkeye positioned themselves behind cover, ready to strike. The air grew thick with tension as the two worlds faced each other. Thor stepped forward, gripping Mjolnir tightly. "You will stand down, stranger." His voice carried the weight of thunder itself. "You will not strike the Hulk again." Superman wiped the blood from his lip, his eyes still locked on the green giant who was slowly rising to his feet. "You don't understand," Superman said, his voice strained. "He's not just strong, he's evolving. If we don't stop him now, Iron Man cut him off. Yeah, pal, I don't know what your deal is, but you just wrecked half the Midwest punching our big green guy." His helmet retracted, and Tony Stark's exhausted face stared back at Superman. "I think you've done enough." Captain America's voice was calm but firm. "Step away from Hulk, now!" Superman clenched his fists. "If I do that, the world isn't gonna survive what comes next," Hulk snarled, rolling his shoulders, his wounds already healing. His voice was different now, less beast, more Banner. "Let's find out." And then all hell broke loose. Hulk lunged first, faster than before. Catching Superman off guard, Thor swung Mjolnir, his godly strength colliding with Hulk's jaw in a strike that could shatter mountains. Superman barely had time to react before Iron Man fired an arc blast at his back, sending him stumbling forward. Captain America closed the distance in an instant, his shield slamming into Superman's ribs. Superman grunted in pain, but grabbed the shield before Cap could pull it back, then hit Steve Rogers with enough force to send him flying across the battlefield. "Stay down, Captain." Iron Man's HUD flashed red with power readings. "Holy hell, that guy just punched Cap into next week. Okay, Hulk, you can be mad at him again." Hulk roared and charged. Thor called lightning from the sky, channeling its raw power through Mjolnir, sending it crashing down on Superman's head. The explosion turned night into day. When the light faded, Superman still stood, but his breathing was ragged. His body ached, and for the first time he realized something. He wasn't going to win this, not alone. Hulk staggered forward, his body still mutating, shifting, growing. His white eyes flickered, then darkened into something new. Something smarter, something worse. Superman's stomach twisted. He had pushed Hulk beyond his limits. Now, he was becoming something else. Then, the sky cracked open. A new portal formed above them, its energy unnatural, unstable. A voice, cold, calculating, powerful, spoke from the other side. "Enough." Superman's eyes widened. The Avengers turned, weapons raised. Hulk's breath hitched. Then, he was pulled into the portal. It sealed shut behind him. And just like that, Hulk was gone. The battlefield fell into silence. Superman stared at the empty sky. And then, Tony Stark's voice cut through the quiet. "Okay, what the hell just happened?" Inside an undisclosed laboratory, deep within the void of the unknown, Hulk was restrained. Massive chains of energy bound him, locking his growing power away. A shadowed figure stood before him, Lex Luthor. He smiled, placing a hand on the massive containment pod. "Don't worry, big guy. We're just getting started."